Dean Martin was born Dino Paul Crocetti on June 7, 1917, in Steubenville, Ohio. Dean Martin was the son of Italian immigrants. His father, Gaetano Crocetti, was a barber, while his mother, Angela Barra, was a homemaker. Italian was the first language spoken in the Crocetti household, and young Dino did not speak English fluently until he entered school. This immigrant upbringing shaped his worldview and contributed to the subtle outsider confidence he later carried into his performances, an ease that seemed unstudied but was built on resilience and adaptability. Martin's early life was far from glamorous. He left high school at 16 and worked a series of jobs that reflected the grit of Depression-era America: steel mill laborer, gas station attendant, blackjack dealer in underground casinos, and even a brief stint as an amateur boxer under the name Kid Crochet. These experiences toughened him and gave him a streetwise perspective that would later inform his on-stage persona, the man who had seen life up close and chose to meet it with a smile and a drink. Music eventually drew Martin toward show business. Inspired by crooners like Bing Crosby, he adopted the stage name Dean Martin and began singing in nightclubs and on local radio. His smooth, velvety voice, rich with warmth and emotional understatement, quickly distinguished him from other vocalists. Unlike singers who leaned into melodrama, Martin sang as if the song were an intimate conversation, relaxed yet deeply expressive. This quality would become his signature. The defining turning point of Martin's career came in 1946 when he was paired with Jerry Lewis. Together, they formed one of the most successful comedy duos in entertainment history. Martin played the handsome straight man, while Lewis embodied manic physical comedy. Their partnership dominated nightclubs, radio, film, and television throughout the late 1940s and early 1950s. Though the public saw a seamless act, the partnership was strained behind the scenes by creative differences and contrasting personalities. When they split in 1956, many assumed Martin's career would falter without Lewis. Freed from the duo, Martin reinvented himself as a serious actor and solo entertainer. He delivered a critically acclaimed dramatic performance in The Young Lions, 1958, alongside Marlon Brando and Montgomery Clift, shocking audiences who had only known him as a comedian. This performance established Martin as a legitimate actor and opened doors to a wide range of roles, from westerns like Rio Bravo, 1959, to romantic comedies and dramas. At the same time, his music career flourished. Dean Martin became one of the most popular recording artists of his era, scoring enduring hits such as That's Amore, Everybody Loves Somebody, Memories Are Made of This, and Volare. His 1964 recording of Everybody Loves Somebody famously knocked the Beatles off the top of the Billboard charts, a moment that symbolized Martin's timeless appeal even amid the cultural upheaval of the 1960s. Martin also became a central figure in the legendary Rat Pack alongside Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Peter Lawford, and Joey Bishop. In Las Vegas, the Rat Pack redefined live entertainment with shows that blended music, comedy, improvisation, and a sense of glamorous rebellion. Dean Martin's Rat Pack persona, the perpetually relaxed entertainer with a drink in hand, became iconic. Though often mistaken for genuine drunkenness, the act was largely theatrical. Martin understood the power of image and used it to disarm audiences and fellow performers alike. Perhaps no platform showcased Martin's versatility better than The Dean Martin Show, which aired from 1965 to 1974. The variety show highlighted his talents as a singer, comedian, and host while reinforcing his image as the man who made everything look easy. His casual asides, self-deprecating humor, and apparent spontaneity masked a sharp professional instinct and deep respect for his craft. The show became a television staple and further cemented his status as a household name. After years of carefully choosing his appearances, Martin made a surprising and crowd-pleasing return to the big screen, if only briefly, by stepping into two of the most flamboyant ensemble films of the early 1980s. He joined an all-star cast in The Cannonball Run, a movie that critics were quick to dismiss but audiences eagerly embraced, turning it into a box office phenomenon. The film's loose, anything-goes spirit perfectly matched Martin's legendary cool, allowing him to glide through his scenes with the effortless charm that had defined his career for decades. Riding the wave of its commercial success, he returned once more for Cannonball Run 2, reuniting with a dazzling lineup of Hollywood personalities and reminding fans that his screen presence, no matter how brief, still carried undeniable star power. At the same time, Martin quietly rekindled his love for music, scoring a modest but notable hit with the soulful track, Since I Met You Baby. The song served as a gentle reminder of his versatility, proving that his smooth, understated vocal style still resonated in an era dominated by flashier pop sounds. Embracing the changing landscape of entertainment, Martin even ventured into a new medium, releasing his very first music video, airing on MTV. The video symbolized his willingness to adapt and remain relevant in a rapidly evolving industry, adding a deeply personal touch to the project. It was directed by his youngest son, Richie, making the endeavor not just a professional milestone but a meaningful family collaboration, one that captured Martin at a reflective stage of his life, gracefully bridging past triumphs with new forms of expression. Dean Martin's private life, much like his legendary career, unfolded as a dramatic and deeply human story of love, family, and heartbreak, one that spanned decades and shaped the man behind the effortless charm. Though audiences knew him as the smooth-voiced crooner and carefree entertainer, Martin's marriages reveal a far more complex and emotional side of his life. Martin was married 3 times, and each union marked a distinct chapter in his personal journey. His first marriage was to Elizabeth and MacDonald, whom he wed on October 2, 1941, at a time when his career was still finding its footing. Together they built a family and welcomed 4 children: Craig Martin, Claudia Martin, Gail Martin, and Deanna Martin. These early years were defined by ambition, struggle, and the pressures of a rising career in entertainment. As Martin's fame grew, the strain on their relationship became increasingly difficult to manage. After 8 years of marriage, the couple ultimately went their separate ways, finalizing their divorce in 1949. Not long after, in September of that same year, Dean Martin entered into his second and longest-lasting marriage, this time with Jean Beager. This union would become the most enduring and significant relationship of his life. Over the course of their 24 years together, the couple had 3 children: Dean Paul Martin, Richie Martin, and Gina Martin. During this period, Martin reached the height of his stardom, dominating film, television, and music, while Jean played a central role in maintaining stability at home. Their marriage endured the pressures of celebrity, constant travel, and public scrutiny for more than 2 decades. However, despite its longevity, the relationship eventually came to an end, and the couple divorced on March 29, 1973. Later that same year, Martin married Catherine Hahn on April 25, 1973. By this point, he was already a living legend, yet still searching for personal fulfillment and companionship. The marriage, however, proved to be short-lived. After less than 3 years together, Martin and Hahn divorced in February 1976, bringing his final marriage to a close. To millions around the world, Dean Martin was the embodiment of effortless charm, the smooth crooner with the half-lidded eyes, the lazy grin, and the cocktail always within reach. He seemed untouched by worry, drifting through life as casually as he drifted through songs like "Everybody Loves Somebody." Yet behind the laughter, the music, and the Rat Pack mythology lay a far darker, more complicated man, one whose private struggles were carefully hidden behind a polished public image. Dean Martin worked relentlessly to cultivate the illusion that nothing ever mattered too much. "I don't worry," he once said. "I just don't see the point." But those closest to him knew that this carefree philosophy was more defense mechanism than truth. Martin had grown up poor in Steubenville, Ohio, the son of Italian immigrants, and the insecurity of those early years never fully left him. Fame brought wealth and adoration, but it also deepened his need to escape from anything that resembled emotional confrontation. One of the most persistent myths surrounding Martin was his drinking. On stage and on television, he played the lovable drunk to perfection, slurring words and clutching a glass as if he could barely stand. "People think I drink all the time," he once remarked. "If they only knew what was really in the glass." While it's true that many times his cup contained apple juice or tea, alcohol was still very much a part of his private life, and not always in a harmless way. Drinking became a tool for avoidance, a way to keep feelings at arm's length and to avoid dealing with pain, disappointment, or responsibility. Nowhere was this emotional distance more evident than in his personal relationships. Martin was married 3 times and had 8 children. Yet he was often described as remote and unreachable. He loved his family, but he struggled to express it in ways they needed. "I'm not good at talking about feelings," he admitted. "I never was." His career always came first, and the demands of fame, combined with his emotional reserve, created a wall between him and those closest to him. Perhaps the darkest chapter of Dean Martin's life came with the death of his son, Dean Paul Martin, who was killed in a plane crash in 1987. The loss devastated him. Friends noticed an immediate and permanent change. The humor dulled, the sparkle faded, and the desire to perform all but vanished. "You don't get over something like that," Martin said quietly. "You just learn to live with it." In truth, he never really did. He withdrew further, rarely appearing in public and abandoning the showman persona that had once defined him. His long friendship with Frank Sinatra also revealed another shadowy side of Martin's character, his tendency to retreat rather than confront. While Sinatra thrived on control, confrontation, and intensity, Martin recoiled from conflict. When tensions arose within the Rat Pack, Martin often chose silence over resolution. "I don't fight," he said. "I walk away." Over time, that habit led to emotional isolation, leaving him surrounded by people yet profoundly alone. By the final years of his life, Dean Martin was a man exhausted by the very image that had made him famous. The smiling, singing, wisecracking entertainer had become a mask he no longer had the energy to wear. "People think I had it easy," he once reflected. "They only see what I let them see." Behind the scenes was a man who avoided pain rather than healing it, who buried grief instead of sharing it, and who paid a heavy price for a lifetime of emotional distance. Dean Martin will always be remembered as a legend, a voice, a face, a symbol of a glamorous era. But the truth is far more human and far more tragic. His dark side was not cruelty or scandal but quiet suffering, unspoken grief, and a lifelong struggle to let anyone truly know him. Martin's final years unfolded with a quiet gravity that stood in stark contrast to the brash, confident persona he had displayed for decades on stage and screen. A lifelong heavy smoker, he was diagnosed with lung cancer in September 1993 at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, a revelation that marked the beginning of the last chapter of his life. Doctors told him that surgery could potentially prolong his time, but true to the fiercely independent spirit that had defined him both personally and professionally, Martin declined the procedure. It was a decision that reflected not only his weariness after a long life in the spotlight, but also his acceptance of fate on his own terms. As his health steadily declined, Martin withdrew from public life in early 1995, retreating from the applause, the camera flashes, and the glittering nightlife that had once been his natural habitat. For fans who had grown up with his music, his films, and his legendary presence in entertainment history, his absence was deeply felt. The man who had once embodied effortless cool and carefree charm now lived quietly, surrounded by the memories of a career that had left an indelible mark on popular culture. On Christmas Day 1995, Martin died at his Beverly Hills home at the age of 78. The cause was acute respiratory failure resulting from emphysema, a cruel consequence of the habits that had followed him throughout his life. The news of his passing resonated far beyond Hollywood. In a rare and poignant tribute, the lights of the Las Vegas Strip were dimmed in his honor, a symbolic gesture acknowledging not just a performer but a legend whose presence had been inseparable from the city's identity and spirit. Martin was laid to rest at the Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles, joining countless other icons of film and music. His crypt bears an epitaph that perfectly captures both his legacy and the emotional bond he shared with his audience. "Everybody loves somebody sometime," the opening line of his signature song. In those simple words lies the essence of his enduring